everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Public Health Ontario Skills and Tools presentation. Today's topic is an introduction to the PHO Review Manager, or OnePHORM. My name is Alexandra McKnight. I'm a program facilitator on the capacity building team here at PHO, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's session. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items to mention. The chat pod has been enabled for discussion today. However, if you have questions for the presenters during the session, please use the Q&A pod, and a discussion and question period will follow the presentation. If at any point you experience any technical issues during the session, please email capacitybuilding@oahpp.ca. It's now my pleasure to introduce the speakers for today's presentation: Nancy Ondrusek, Director of Research and Ethics Services, and Magali Rootham, Program Analyst in Research and Ethics Services here at PHO. And with that, I will pass it to Nancy to begin today's presentation.
Thanks, Alexandra. And before I go further, I wanted to particularly acknowledge Magali's role as the lead for this project and all the tremendous work she did to get us to this point. So hopefully you've heard the exciting news that OnePHORM is now live and available for use. Currently, this use is optional, but at some point early next year, we're thinking approximately February, use of OnePHORM for applicable reviews will become mandatory. We'll give you plenty of warning before that. In this session, we would like to get into the practical aspects to help you use the new system, including when to use it. So in other words, what projects require use of this system or can use the system. Give you an understanding of some of the key features and tips in how to use it effectively. We'll also point to various supports and resources to help you use the system. I'd like to emphasize that this presentation offers an overview of OnePHORM, and please consult the resources and guidelines that are available for using OnePHORM for your particular project. So the development of this system required technical configuration, but also extensive work to clarify, standardize, and harmonize multiple processes managed by different teams. So I want to acknowledge that this was achieved through collaboration with departments across Public Health Ontario. For example, we looked at feedback on current processes from researchers and project teams. There were many, many rounds of consultation with reviewers on content and process development. Technical services provided critical guidance and support, including SharePoint expertise, and staff in various roles across PHO provided valuable testing and feedback of the developing system. So it really is one PHO product as well. Next slide, please. So what is OnePHORM? You can go to the next slide. The acronym stands for PHO Review Manager, and it is an online system based in SharePoint. It was created to streamline internal review and approval of research projects prior to their initiation. And so the review processes that are integrated into OnePHORM are resources review, that's also known currently as operational review, and looks at both lab impacts and non-lab impacts, as well as privacy and ethics reviews. These review processes aren't new, but they are currently managed through separate streams, each with their own set of forms. With OnePHORM, there's a single intake so that you can provide the project information once, and it's used for all reviews. One additional feature is that for privacy reviews, the scope is expanded beyond research, and OnePHORM can be used as the intake for any activities requiring privacy review. We want to note that OnePHORM does not manage implementation of operational resources, whether it's legal agreements or fulfilling data requests. The focus is on the initial approval to indicate that a project can go forward. So this capabilities map summarizes some of the key features of OnePHORM. And so looking at the top line, the purple line, for researchers, some of the key features include the single intake and reduced duplication of documentation that I'd mentioned already, as well as providing clear criteria for determining what reviews are needed for a particular project, because not every project requires every review or to the same extent. OnePHORM lets you track the status of the reviews throughout, so you don't have to keep emailing and asking people, is it approved yet? And provides email notifications with reminders and status updates. For program areas and reviewers, the single intake ensures that all reviewers are looking at the same version of a project. Project reviews and approvals are tracked, and reports can be pulled about the project submitted and your review activity. And then finally, at the organization level, the green line, OnePHORM provides a new opportunity that we haven't had yet at PHO to look at all projects entering the review process. And we can generate data such as volume and types of projects and look at turnaround times. So with that, I'll turn it over to Magali, who will give you more detail about using OnePHORM.
Thanks, Nancy. So when to use OnePHORM? What projects are eligible for OnePHORM review? So this, as Nancy mentioned a little bit, this is for all new research projects that are ready for operational review, which we call resource review in the system, privacy review, ethics review, and then new initiatives that require privacy review, since that is a broader scope than just research projects. It will not be used for projects that are already approved, any amendments that be it privacy or ethics and ethics renewals. And as Nancy mentioned, also legal agreement review and approval is not currently in the system. And this is an internally built system, so you never know what we might build in later, but for now, this is where we're at. The next few slides, I'm going to go over a bit of the key intake assessment criteria. We get a lot of questions about this, and it's really important in the system to help you. It screens your project basically for what reviews you will need. And so these are sort of the basic outline of the questions that you see, and all projects start kind of subscribed to all reviews, and then you're gradually screened out of reviews as you make your way through the assessment criteria questions, as you make your way down this tree. So the first question you see, and that everyone sees, is the human participants question. This question is to say if you have any human participants, data or material. But I did want to draw attention to particularly the last two items above, none of the above, that we sometimes people miss it because maybe they don't think of it as human data or human participants. But for the purpose of this criteria, it is. And so that's materials derived from human biological materials, and then location or spatial related data that are connected to humans, or that can be linked with other data to derive information about individuals or groups of individuals. I think sometimes people miss that question, and so just wanted to draw attention to it. If you select none of the above, you're not screened out yet of OnePHORM, but you are screened out of ethics or privacy review. But you will see this next question as well. So this next question is about routine activities. Does the project fall under any of the following categories of routine day-to-day activities? So this is really to try and capture operational work for the purpose of screening out of ethics or resource review. Those historically have not reviewed these projects. That's not to say if you have a project that you would like to review or consult, you can still do that. And OnePHORM shouldn't be a replacement for connecting with reviewers if you have any questions. But for the purpose of OnePHORM and whether it screens you in, these questions will screen you out of ethics or resource review. They'll have no impact on privacy. And then lastly, if you've said that your project is not a routine activity, then you'll see this question about evidence generating. We do get a lot of questions about this. We have been adding to the examples to this as projects come up. So do let us know if you have a question and you're not really sure if your project is considered evidence generating, because it's a really key question. It will screen you out of ethics and resource review, even if you've said yes to human participants for ethics. So do let us know and be careful as you select this one. Really, it's meant to take out grounds or data that's not used for the purpose of research. So just be careful on that one. And then lastly, this question is if you said yes to routine activities, then privacy would like to know if there's a change in something that you were doing. So a routine activity that has a change in collection, use, or disclosure of personal information. And if there is, then you'll screen into privacy, and if there isn't, you'll be screened out here. Again, OnePHORM is not a replacement for communicating with reviewers, so when in doubt, just ask them. They're still available at their usual emails, and they can let you know, and they can even help you to respond to these questions. So where is OnePHORM? OnePHORM is on PHO Connect. PHO Connect, as you well know, is only available if you're on VPN or if you're on site. If the VPN is slow, then unfortunately OnePHORM will be slow too. So try to come back later if you're having difficulty with it. I find that it sometimes fluctuates throughout the day, and so if it seems slow to you, just put it aside and come back later. Or you might find that working on site is better. I'm not sure. So the next few slides, we have some demonstration videos that are very quick, but I'm going to play them for you. I see we're doing really great on time, so I'll try and take my time here. And I'll pause a little bit between each video to walk through the key kind of items for each one. So here's video 1.
Video 1, creating an application and exploring the My Projects landing page. On the home page, you can find links to OnePHORM resources like the Quick Start resource. Once you're ready to get started, click on My Projects in the left sidebar. At first glance, this will look a lot like an ordinary SharePoint site. Similarly, you will click New Item to start your new project application. Complete the assessment questions carefully because this section is very important to funnel your project into the required reviews. Please contact OnePHORM if you have questions when completing this assessment. You will not be able to edit these questions once you have started your application. Once you've completed all the questions, you can scroll up to find the Requirements tab. Here you can see which reviews OnePHORM has allocated your project to. OnePHORM is not a replacement for communication with reviewers. If you have any concerns, you should reach out to reviewers to determine next steps. Clicking the Start Application and Save will close the application, but the next time you open your application, new project tabs will appear. The My Projects landing page is a view unique to your login. You will only see projects you have been added to as a team member here, either ones you have started yourself or ones you were added to.
So you can see here that in video 1 that you should again need to carefully complete the intake assessment, as this determines what reviews are required. OnePHORM is not a replacement for communication with reviewers, so you should ask them if you have any doubts or questions about how your project was funneled. And the My Projects landing page will only show you applications you have created or have been added to. And so we have video 2.
Video 2, navigating the application and adding team members. Open your file in edit mode by clicking the little pencil icon. The tabs that appear are tailored to reviews required and based on selections made in the intake assessment. Again, highlighting the importance of the first assessment tab. You're able to see all the tabs here, but you should complete the project details tabs first. That's the admin, project, team, and data tabs. These details are shared by all the reviewers. It's very important to fill in the PHO project lead, the person who will be able to submit the project for reviews, as well as the departmental approver. You can invite team members to edit a file here as well. They will receive an email notifying them that they have access to the file. Make sure to save. If your project requires resource review, you should complete that tab next, after the project details tabs. On this project, we filled it in already, so it's ready to submit. You'll need to lock and submit your resources tab before you can submit privacy and ethics for review. You'll still be able to edit the project details tabs once you submit the resource review, but the resource questions will be locked.
So again, these videos are short, and I meant to mention at the beginning that they'll be available, so you can come back to them if you have any questions. But you must be in the edit view to add content to the application. This is kind of familiar to most of us from SharePoint. You complete the project details tabs first. That was the admin, project, team, and data tabs, as these are shared across all reviews. PHO staff can be invited to edit a file. So you can add your staff, or it can be actually someone who's not the PHO project lead who starts the file, and then they can add the PHO project lead to a file. Make sure you save regularly. You'll know you've saved if the system takes you back to the first tab. And now
Video 3, how to generate a printout template and attach files to your application. We completed this application and are now going to generate some printout templates. You can access the Print Templates option from the Read view either by clicking on the project title in My Projects list or by clicking on any of the links in one of the emails. You'll know you're in the Read view because it is all in light blue and none of the fields will be editable. Click on the print icon at the top. You can generate printouts of important forms for your submission, like the ERB application. These forms will import information from your file, so it's important to complete the Project Details tabs before this step. We'll be adding more forms over time. If there is a form you'd like to see here, please let us know. This is also where you can generate a full printout of your file to share with your teammates outside of PHO. You can download a Word copy for editing offline from the system. It's important to save the form. Make sure you give it a unique name, such as including your OnePHORM file ID, project title, or date. This will be important later when you are uploading documents to your OnePHORM application. The templates will import content from your file for reference while you complete the rest. If you make edits here, they will not appear in your OnePHORM file.
So again, the printouts can be accessed through the read-only view only. That's the only way to get there. But you do find yourself in this view fairly often if you're clicking through from one of the links. Printouts can be generated of pre-populated review forms and a full printout of the project. We have a number of forms available there already. We plan to add a few more. Do let us know if there's something you'd really like to see there. In the future, it could be that we have the functionality to include forms that are not required for your submission, but might be helpful later. So that's something to think about later as well. Edits made to the printout will not appear in the OnePHORM file, unfortunately. So if you do make some significant edits, you'll want to go back into your OnePHORM file and edit it there as well. And this is the last video.
Video 4, attach, submit, and monitor progress. Now we will attach our documents to the file and then submit the project for review. On the Attach tab, select Add Attachment. It's very important that your file has a unique name, unique to your project. Some information can be added to each file to help you and the reviewers navigate what is the most up-to-date file. Once uploaded, you will not be able to edit it again. You will need to attach a new copy with revisions. Now that you have uploaded all necessary project documents, you are ready to submit. Moving to the Submit tab, only the PHO project lead can submit the project for reviews. If it is a grant application, you should wait until the funding is obtained and update it on the Admin tab to continue this step. The system will email status updates as your project makes its way through review and approval. It will also email the reviewers weekly to notify them of any outstanding reviews. You can also go to the My Project page or the Status tab in the project file to monitor progress of your application as it goes through review.
So save your attachments with a unique name to avoid errors during upload. This is a system limitation, so just be careful about it. Make sure you include maybe your last name, maybe your full title, things that would distinguish this from other files in the system. All the files are bucketed in one place in OnePHORM, and so if you have the same name as somebody else's project, it can cause real problems. So only the PHO project lead can submit an application for review. This is just a requirement of our system to make sure that your PHO project lead is aware of the submission happening and is ready to submit. And then the reviewers will receive weekly reminders of any outstanding reviews. This is a nice feature where you don't necessarily need to follow up. Again, you know, the human element is still there. So if you want to follow up with the reviewer, or if you have a very short timeline that you need to meet, you can still write to them, but know that they will receive a weekly reminder that they haven't reviewed your project yet. So that was a lot of information, and I've tried to kind of summarize it a little bit here. Again, you'll be able to go back to those videos if you need to, so don't worry too much about it. Now we started with creating the application. We completed the intake assessment. If you walk away with one thing from this session today, it's that the intake questions are really key. So when in doubt, please ask, and we'll help you through it. These questions, again, funnel your project into required reviews. Then once you've created your application, you can complete the project details. That was the admin, project, team, and data tabs. These tabs are used across the reviews and are also used to pre-populate the OnePHORM templates. So if you don't have content there, then the template won't have content there as well. Once you've completed the project details, you can move on to complete, lock, and submit the resource module. This will become locked, so you won't be able to add resources after this point, but the project details will still remain open so that if you make any changes while you're building your ethics and privacy modules, you're still able to edit those parts. Only the PHO project lead can submit the project for any review. That includes the resource review. And you can do this and you should be doing this one at this point if it's applicable. 4 is complete the privacy and ethics modules. If this is a grant application, this stage can generally wait until you have approval that your project is actually funded. So you can stop there if this is a grant application. But if not, you can complete those modules. They're largely handled through attachments. You can attach OnePHORM templates. You can attach non-OnePHORM templates as well. You can, sorry, I got lost there. And so once you've completed those sections and you're ready, there is a final lock and submit for all of the remaining reviews. So that includes the departmental approval, the privacy and ethics reviews. I know we have a number of managers here today, so this is when they will review it. And so it's quite a ways into the project. But all reviews will be reviewed by a departmental approver before they go to privacy and ethics. So I think our next 2 slides are some knowledge checks. So if you can throw into the chat, if you, this knowledge check. So this applicant is ready to submit their application for final review. What's wrong? Is something missing here? So I can't see necessarily. So if anyone has any ideas, maybe Alexandra will let me know.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the chat.
It shouldn't be a skill testing question. But yeah, this is in the chat as opposed to the Q&A. Thanks, I see Elizabeth. Yeah, the departmental approver is missing and the system won't tell you. So if you haven't put a departmental approver here, when you go to submit your final project for review, your project will essentially sit in limbo unless I notice as admin. I tend to check this when I see someone has submitted and we can fix it, but ideally we don't want to hold up your project this way. So make sure you put someone in there. It should be your one-up approver or whoever that's designated in your department. And what would be a good name for an attachment? Excuse me. Thanks, Lori. So yeah, I mean, you don't need to put this long title, but you do need to make it something unique. As I mentioned before, this is sort of a system issue that it really, they all sit together, all these documents. So it can cause problems between the files if you don't have a unique enough name. So make sure you give it a unique name before you upload it. You'll be able to add other kind of information to it as you upload, but just wanted to really hone in on that one as an issue. Then we just have a brief slide for departmental approvers. The focus today has been mostly on applicants, but departmental approvers Also have a few things to know. So one, as soon as you add them to that field in your OnePHORM file, they'll get an FYI email that they've been added. And this is to make sure they're the correct person. So they should self-identify if they're not the right person, and they can write to OnePHORM. They can write to the project applicant, whoever, but they should fix that if they have been incorrectly listed in that field. They'll later receive a call to action to review the application. So they can wait for that one. They won't need to look at the application much before that call to action email. And then if they don't review within a week, they will receive weekly email reminders on Mondays at 10. So this is to help them make sure they get the review done. They can check out, we have a quick start for applicants, but we also have a quick start for reviewers. So this might help just to get started if you're in your first review in that role. And also remember to look at the project tabs and attachments. So there's a lot of information there, but it should be fairly accessible. Mostly heard good things, so you should be able to find what you're looking for as far as approving as departmental approver. And that's kind of it. So I'm going to open up for questions. I think we'll send some links to the Quick Start Guide, as well as just how to get to OnePHORM to submit a project. But I'm going to close my slides so we can open it up for some questions.
Thanks, Magali and Nancy. That was great. So we are going to move on to the Q&A segment to address any of the questions from the audience. So if you haven't already, please continue to enter your questions into the Q&A pod, and we will get to the first few now. So we had a question. I'll read it out, and you two can decide who's best suited to take it. But when should we submit a project through OnePHORM? And then a bit more information. I was thrown off by one of the examples that had evidence synthesis as an example. This person wouldn't have thought that you would need to submit a systematic review, for example, through OnePHORM.
I'm actually going to throw that one at Nancy.
Sure, no problem. So I'll just start by saying that in designing OnePHORM, we're looking to streamline and harmonize reviews, but and part of the process was also that was a lot of work, and still continues to be something that's refined, is really crystallizing what projects get what kind of reviews. And we did something similar with ethics, where we're trying to define what needs ethics review and whatnot way back when I first started at PHO 13 years ago. And there are always going to be gray areas. And with OnePHORM, we tried to, again, standardize as much as possible, but just sort of that as a kind of caveat before I specify that question. So, with OnePHORM, the main target is research projects, but also related projects that would normally go through these review processes. We're not trying to suddenly add reviews that were never required before. So it kind of depends on where the systematic review sits. Like if a systematic review is part of an operational activity that you're doing, for example, the many knowledge syntheses that we do for during COVID, for example, it's not going to require OnePHORM because it didn't require those review processes before. But if it's part of a research grant, for example, and the grant has to have operational review as part of the sign-off, then that's where it would be included. So there's a little bit of judgment there, and that's why we're always saying, when in doubt, please contact Magali or one of the reviewers. And we do hope, and we again had this experience with developing the ethics program, the more, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know what we're missing, or what the total projects look like. So as we see more and more projects and get more and more questions, hopefully we'll find ways to refine the system even further to make it easier, more obvious to decide that this is in or out. But so this is a launch of a system, but it's a work in progress, and yes, we happy to answer those questions, and there's always going to be some gray areas, but hopefully we can reduce the number of them.
I just wanted to add quickly to the question of when to submit. it's basically when you would be ready to start. So like when you would be ready to initiate your project, you would do it. For grant applications, that's a little different because that has to happen. The operational review has to happen before you submit your grant. So that's a little different, but for all other projects, it would be when you would normally be getting ready to submit your privacy, for example.
Thanks both. Couple more questions in the Q&A. Is there a list of questions that we can have a look at? I'm assuming that's referring to just questions overall that are in the system, but if this person wants to clarify that, please do.
So there is a full printout of the system. There is a lot of branching of questions in the system. So you can pull a full printout, but there will be a lot of blank in there because you may never see a question if you never hit sort of an earlier branching question to get there. So you can pull a printout of your project with just all the questions and all the information you filled in so far. And this can also be a helpful tool for sharing with people outside of PHO as you take your project through review. So I'm not sure if that's quite what you're looking for. The questions I showed today were just the ones part of the intake criteria because they're sort of key in funneling your project, but there are obviously a number of questions that are not in there.
Awesome. Yes, I see they clarified questions in the system, so hopefully that helps. Another in the Q&A pod, which areas are involved in reviews?
Those are the same who are involved in reviews currently. So privacy and ethics will review for privacy and ethics. And then for operational review, that each, the research departments at the lab and at the non-lab will help take this to the managers of different areas. So those areas have told us which questions they want to see and which ones they don't want to see. And so we still manage that outside of OnePHORM, but you'll be able to see on your file if a project was going to one of these departments for approval.
If I can just expand on that a little bit. So, for example, behind the scenes there, as far as which the research reviews or the resource reviews, if you have library resources, then the question will go to library or events or in the lab, particular lab services. So those, it's not the individual in the research office making all the decisions. It's the manager responsible for each of those resources. But you don't have to worry about that happening. Like that single intake will deal with that.
Thank you. We've got one more question in the chat so far. If anybody else has any burning questions on your mind, please do continue to submit them. But to clarify who can submit a file, and I guess both create and submit. So the question is, can a research coordinator, for example, create a OnePHORM application on behalf of a PI?
Definitely. So anybody can start the application and then they would list that PHO project lead, so the PI, on the admin tab, and that person will get a notification that they've been added. But the person who created the file can keep adding stuff to the file. It's pretty open that way. It's just that the PHO project lead has to be the one to actually click the submit button. So you'll be able, like an RC, for example, you'd be able to lock all the questions and have it all ready to submit, but you won't be able to actually click on the submit button, if that makes sense.
Great. I'm not sure if you mentioned this in the presentation, Magali, but do you have an approximate estimate of how long reviews take kind of from start to finish?
Really depends on the project. If there are a lot of impacts, that can be a little slow for the resource review. And then the ethics and privacy reviews should take the same amount of time they take currently. So that again depends a lot on the complexity of the project or the type of form that a project is eligible for. Both privacy and ethics have sort of fast track review and SPIAs to help make that go a little quicker, but I guess it just really depends. In the same way it depends now. but I would give yourself a lot of time. If before you're going to start your project, I would definitely allow like 6 to 8 weeks to do reviews. And I wouldn't say that's new to OnePHORM. I'd say that's just normal process right now that we recommend giving a solid amount of time before you're planning to start your project to get through reviews.
I'll just add that hopefully OnePHORM will speed things. Like of course, the reviews have to happen and the due consideration and complexity. But one factor that can slow reviews down is incomplete information if it gets to privacy or ethics without all the details, or resources without all the impacts specified. So we're hoping that with this system, because you only have to answer everything once, that it will be a more thorough project details completed at the outset, which hopefully will have a positive impact on turnaround times.
Awesome, thank
And
you.
the data too that you were talking about earlier, Nancy, of just knowing we don't know right now how long it really takes, because these reviews are happening in such a siloed way. So it'll be really interesting to see where things get caught in the system, and how we can optimize that going forward.
Well, no other questions right now. I'll do a call for any kind of final questions that anyone has. In the meantime, I don't know, Magali, do you want to go over again just kind of what support is available outside of this session today in terms of things that everyone can read? Who can they reach out to?
Definitely. So we have the quick start. That's always the first place I point people to when they're starting an application. If they have any questions, they can always write to OnePHORM or me. And we plan to do some sort of more open sessions as well, to sort of troubleshoot. If anyone over the next few months is interested in those, it would be helpful to let me know, and we'll schedule those, sort of a more Q&A session, kind of like TA hours, I guess.
Perfect. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, so maybe we will start to wrap up. So just, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to the both of you for today's presentation, super informative. And I'd also like to thank everyone who was able to join us today. You can expect to receive a brief and totally anonymous PHO survey for today's session, so please do try to complete that to help improve our programming. And I'd also like to remind everyone to save the date for topic, which will be held on March 26th and April 3rd in 2024, and is now accepting abstract submissions. You can check out tophc.ca for more details. So thank you so much again, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.